Okay, it's 5 o'clock, a little after, and we are here to continue our interviewing process for the position of superintendent here. Ms. Brannon, are you comfortable?
Yes, absolutely.
Can we get you anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Can we get, we do have a quorum present, if we can get a motion here?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Please bear with me. As you can see, I'm slightly handicapped this evening. We'll do our best here to get through this. If you would, please tell us about your personal background, professional experience, and your belief in public education, and why you're interested in being our superintendent here.
First of all, my name's Joey Brannon. I am originally from Troy, Alabama. Went all the way from preschool through college in Troy. I got a political science degree from Troy University. When I graduated, I went to Auburn University in Montgomery. Got my master's in secondary education. Met my wife while I was at Troy. Got married after graduating from Troy, so I was married when I went to graduate school. Got done there, and my first teaching job was actually in Eufaula. I came here in '98. I taught 7th grade social studies at Admiral Moore Middle School. I was there for 7 years. While I was there, I went to Troy University in Phoenix City. I got my ed leadership degree. And in 2005, Miss Sylvia Malone, who was for a while the assistant principal at the middle school here, had moved on and had become the principal at D.A. Smith Middle School in Ozark. And she called and had an assistant principal's job there. So we moved there in '05. I spent 5 years as an assistant principal at D.A. Smith Middle School. After 5 years, I spent 1 year as the school improvement director for the system. And then I became the principal of Carroll High School. I was there for 5 years. And currently I'm in my 4th year as the assistant superintendent of Ozark City Schools. Education is the background and the backbone of any community. If you want to go into any community and you want to see what their community is about, you look at their school system. The job of a school system is to provide the resources necessary to help kids reach their full potential. And the way that we do that is we make sure as a school system that we're on the same page with each other, that we are together in the plans that we're moving forward with. And when all of us are together, that's how we help kids reach their full potential. And I think that's the number one goal of education. The reason that I want to be the superintendent in Eufaula, and I've told probably each of you and anybody else that I've met with since I've been here, I didn't want to leave when I left the first time. We loved Eufaula. My kids were born here. My kids were christened at the Methodist Church here, and we were really involved in the community here. But I had an admin degree. There wasn't a lot of turnover here at the time, and when the job offer came in to be the assistant principal in Ozark, it was a decision at the time that I thought I had to make to get my administration, career started. And the 14 years that I've spent in Ozark have been invaluable to me and to my career. The experiences that I've had there, the opportunities that I've been given there, really have helped prepare me for, to come back here hopefully and use those skills and things that I've learned there to get this school system where we want it to be.
Thank you much, Dr. Lockwood.
What is your philosophy about discipline in today's schools, and how has your discipline philosophy changed as a result of current safety concerns?
It seems like my whole career I've been directly involved in some facet with discipline. Obviously, I spent 5 years at a middle school as the assistant principal, and anybody that's been in a middle school as an assistant principal knows that discipline is a big part of your day. I've always been a strict disciplinarian, but I also believe that the key to discipline and to making sure that your students are behaving as well as they can is I think the expectations have to be known to the students up front. When I was at Smith Middle School, when I was at Carroll High School, every year at the beginning of the year, I met with every student in the school. We would bring them in by grade level, and we would sit them in the gym, and I would talk to them about what the expectations we had for their behavior, for their schoolwork, and I think that's important. The other thing that we always did was when we were presenting that to them, we didn't come to them from a negative standpoint. What we did was, when I got to Carroll, for example, when I would meet with them, we would talk about all the things that the school is providing for them. The career academy opportunities that we had, the athletic opportunities we had. And what we wanted, or what my goal was by doing that is I wanted students to realize that if they get on board and they do the things they're supposed to do, then we can provide them with all the resources they need to be successful. And so we always went about it that way to begin with. Once we got, you're always going to have some discipline issues. You can go anywhere in Ozark City schools now, especially at the high school and the middle school, and you can ask them now, what is Mr. Brannon's number one rule? And they'll tell you, we don't fight. And we have always been, since I've been involved with discipline, any violent act is something that has to be handled and has to be handled immediately. And that kind of leads into the second part of your question where you're talking about the safety concerns and how that's kind of changed your philosophy. It really has not changed my philosophy any on how I feel about discipline and how I approach discipline, but what it has done is it's made us much more aware of violent actions and violent tendencies, and we have to be proactive in how we handle those. And there's several things we've put in place in Ozark to work with those things. We anytime a kid is recommended for an administrative hearing, which means they've gotten to the level of discipline where they may need to go to alternative school or they may need to go to one of our homebound programs. The way we do that in Ozark is they go to an administrative hearing, and those hearings are held by me. The student services director, myself, and administrator bring the parent in and we bring the student in, and we discuss what behaviors we're seeing. And I let each one of those parents know in each one of those meetings, this is the first time that you've come before this panel. And the goal here today, there may be a punitive aspect to what we're going to do, but that's not the goal. The goal that we're trying to set is we're trying to see what resources as a school we can provide you to make sure that we don't come back down here again. And we have a lot of programs that we offer those students. In most cases, when we see a kid in an administrative hearing, one of the prerequisites for them to come back to school is they have to go to counseling, especially if any of the behavior has been violent in nature. So we have a counseling group that we bring in to meet with them individually. We also have a company that we work with that comes into our ALC and meets with those kids and works with those kids. We have a parent project course in some instances where we get parents to go to the parent project is put on in conjunction with the county, with juvenile services, and it's just a parenting class for parents. And then we also have a Y-Try program that we can get students in, and it just works with them on better ways to handle things when they get upset and those kind of things.
Okay, Mr. Brannon, it's good to see you again.
Yes, you too.
Describe your philosophy about the role of fine arts in schools.
Fine arts are vital programs in school, and as I toured around the schools here, one of the things that I got a little jealous, to be honest with you. Eufaula is very fortunate in the fine arts programs that they have. You have art, you have music in your elementary programs, and what those programs do is they just help to advance kids' creativity and all those things. You know, at the end of the day, we're trying to provide kids with the best education. We're trying to give them, make them the most well-rounded students that they can be in fine arts, and your fine arts programs are crucial in developing that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How have you been involved in ongoing fiscal management, and what are your strengths and weaknesses regarding management?
Well, when I became the principal at Carroll High School, obviously being in charge of the high school, there was a lot of fiscal management dealing with local funds at the high school. But where I've really had the majority of my experience in fiscal management has been since I became the assistant superintendent. Part of my job as the assistant superintendent is I'm also the federal programs director, so all federal funds I deal directly with, and I write all the plans for those programs. And even though special education and career tech money, the Perkins money is not directly under me, I still write those plans in EGAP and work with the administrators on doing that. The way that we do it, and the most experience that I have in it, is every year when you get towards the spring, we start meeting as a district staff, and then we bring principals in, and when we get our FTEs and those kind of things, we really start looking at how many FTEs we're given. You know, are we losing a unit, are we gaining a unit? And then once we do all that, we start looking at what we need and, you know, what our needs are, and so then we start looking at what federal dollars we can bring in. This year we used our Title IV dollars, for an example, to add a resource officer. So now we have two. We have one that serves mainly the high school and the elementary school that's located right near it, and then we have another one that operates our other two schools. So that's something that we do every year, is trying to figure out what areas and how we can best use our money. You know, to make sure that all of our programs are working as good as they can. As a weakness, and I don't know that I would necessarily consider it a weakness, the one area that I've probably worked the least in is we have an excellent CFO in Eufaula in Ozark, and she handles the local funds quite well. And so with me doing the federal programs and her doing the local, I probably spend less time dealing with our local funds than I do our federal funds.
All right, thanks. What would be your plan to recruit, train, mentor, and evaluate teachers and administrators in our school system?
I'll take the teachers first.
Okay.
One of the things that we have to do to make sure that we're recruiting those teachers is we have to get out to these colleges. We have to get to the Troy universities, the Troy and Dothan. We've got to get to, you know, Auburn and Detroit. AUM, you know, is where I went. We've got to get to these job fairs, and we have to get to these students, you know, before they end their career and start letting them know who we are and what we're about. Once you get, and one other thing that we need to start doing in Ozark, one thing that we did was in our academies, we started an education academy. And the purpose behind that, or one of the purposes behind that, is to try to recruit some of our own to go into the education field, with the thought process that would help us when they did graduate from college, to want to come back home and be easier for us to recruit teachers. Once we get a teacher, we do the state mentoring program that we do, and so all of our new teachers have a teacher mentor assigned to them. We ask our administrators to make sure that they're meeting with those teachers and just helping them out in that first year. I think one of the things that we need to do a better job of is in year 2 and 3. I think we're all over them that first year, and then we just kind of forget about them as we move and we start working on the next batch. And I think that that's one area that we could improve in. I know we could in Ozark, and that's one of the things we're looking at, is making sure that as we get year 2 and year 3, that we're still providing those teachers the resources they need, in classroom management and professional development to make sure that they reach their full potential. As far as administrators go, for the last 10 years, we've really made an effort in Ozark to work with our assistant principals to try to develop their skills so that they hopefully can move into principals' roles. Years ago, we had what we called the Leadership Academy. The year that I spent in the School Improvement Director, I actually taught the Leadership Academy. And what we did was we would meet every month with our assistant principals, and we would bring them in and we would discuss different areas with them. We would discuss federal programs, we would discuss discipline, parent involvement. We would discuss all those things with them. And that program went away for a few years, and then what we did this year that I'm really excited about is Dr. Murphy, who was the assistant superintendent in Ozark for years. She has a program that she started called the Leading Edge. And so what we did was we've hired her this year to come in, and she's going to meet with our assistant principals 6 times through the year. And the thing that I'm most excited about is what she's actually going to work with them on is starting to think like a principal. A lot of times as an assistant principal, and I know when I was an assistant principal, 90% of my day was putting out fires. And, you kind of get locked in to doing that, and you don't really ever spend the time to start thinking, how am I going to run my own building when I get it? What are the steps? And so what she's working with them on is those exact skills. What is your leadership style? What do you want to see when you get into a building from your teachers, from your students? And so we've had one meeting with her so far. The assistant principals were really excited about it. And I think that's a good program, because what we need, from our assistant principals is we need them to do a good job at what they're doing, but we're not doing them a service if we're just putting them in there to do their job, and we're not working with them on what it takes to advance and go to the next level. And so that's one of the things that we're doing there, and it's something that I would love to do here as well.
Okay, what would you consider to be the most important duties of a superintendent, and how do you see the role of a superintendent as it relates to the school board, employees, students, and the community?
The most important role of the superintendent is to put the people in the school system in the places they need to be the most effective. And then once you find that, where those people need to be, and you get them in the places that they need to be, then you got to provide them the resources to do their job. And those are the biggest 2 responsibilities I see. Now, once you put those people in their positions and you give them the resources, then you have to do a good job. And this is relates to the second part of your question about, how do you see the superintendent's role as it comes to employees. Once you put them in those positions and you make sure that they have the resources that they need, you have to make sure that you're constantly meeting with those people. What's going well? What's not going well? If it's not going well, why is it not going well? And what can we do to turn that around? And those are, that's the most important thing that I see a superintendent doing, is making sure that they put those people in place, and then you make sure and constantly keep up with them to make sure that those things are going well. From a student standpoint, I think that the superintendent needs to be visible. One of the things that I think that I would, or not think, but one of the things that I would definitely do here, and especially in January when we start, is I would be in the schools meeting with students, meeting with teachers, just to get a pulse of what's going on in the system. And I think that that's a vital role that the superintendent has to have. With the community, I think that the superintendent is responsible for making sure that the community has the information as to what's going on in the school. It's the role and the duty of the superintendent to make sure that the programs we're using, that we're out there in the community and we're letting them know this is what we're using, this is why we're using it, and also this is how we're going to evaluate those programs, because in the community they want to know that you're doing it, that you're being good stewards of the money, and that the programs you're using, there's a reason you're using them. And I see that being the same responsibility with the school board. One of the things that I think that any superintendent needs to do, and it's something that I would definitely do, is make sure that the programs that we're using, you're fully aware of what we're using, why we're using it, how we're evaluating it, and make sure that we're bringing that data to you, show you the effectiveness of the programs that we're using. Okay.
With regards to educational programs, how do you view the superintendent's role, and how do you view the school board's role in formulating those programs?
The superintendent and the school board, in every facet, but especially in those educational programs, need to be on the same page as to what direction the district's moving in. One of the ways that we would do that is through work sessions. I know in Ozark, one of the things that we do is before board meetings, we'll have, depending on what the issue is, maybe an hour before, 30 minutes before, we'll have a work session where we can present those things to you. And one of the things that we're going to do as soon as I begin here is we're going to start meeting as an administrative staff and then meeting with our teachers, and we're going to figure out what programs we're using, how effective they are, and then we're going to start formulating a plan moving forward. And the board will be instrumental in that, and the way that you will be is that we'll present that information to you and make sure that you're on the same page that we are as we move forward.
High performance by the students and accountability are priorities for us. How would you assess the current student performance in our levels in our system, and how would you assess the effectiveness of our teachers and programs?
When you're looking at assessments, there's really kind of two ways that you look at student data. The first way is the reports that you get at the end of the year. Those reports from your test scores, and I know from looking at the data and talking to people in the school system, I know that you're not real happy with where your data is right now. And that's important to know, but then when you know that you're 30% proficient in reading in the 5th grade, then it becomes, how do we fix it? And that's where I think it's really important that you're looking at individual student data. And you're also looking at formative assessments, not just the end of the year assessments, the summative assessments that you take with Aspire and ACT and the rest of those. About 10 years ago in Ozark, we really started looking at student data. And one of the things that we did was we started the programs that we used. If they had formative assessments with them that were aligned to the standards, then we would use those. And in other areas, we created our own formative assessments that we use. And that's where the true effect of using student data comes. Because now what you're actually looking at is you're looking at individual kids, who's struggling, and you're also seeing where they're struggling. So then what that allows you to do is then that allows you to look at the intervention programs you can put into place, the resources that you have available to reach those students, and where you need to reach them. And that is how you truly start to change student performance. And teachers really, along the same lines, is the same thing. You know, we don't need to just look at classrooms and look at the end result. In you know, this class, this teacher's reading group, you know, scored at this level. We need to be looking at that student data all year. And we need to have our own formative assessments that we're using that allow us to get a look at what's going on in the classroom while there's still time to fix it. And that's just, you know, that's the biggest key in student performance and teacher performance. One of the things that we did in Ozark is we started looking at the student data, and then we actually started doing walkthroughs as a district. And so the goal with that was we wanted to make sure that as an administrative group, being system-wide, that we had everybody on the same page as far as what a classroom should look like and what we should see in a classroom. And so we would go through rounds in schools, and that's what we're looking for. And so that you know, once we got done with those observations, we would come in and meet as a group and go over what we saw. And it just was a way for us to get on the same page as an administrative team. And then we would get that information back to the teachers, and that helped them a lot too. But both of those, the formative assessments is the key. And that is, you know, looking at that data all year long. One of the things that we do also in Ozark is we have data meetings from each school. So our principals will come in to the central office and they present their data. And we look at everything from discipline numbers to attendance numbers. But the other thing that we require those principals to do when they come in and they have those data meetings is we want them to show us individual student names. You know, where, you know, what kids have you identified as struggling? What plan did you put in place for those students? And then what results are you seeing from those interventions? And that gives us a really good snapshot at what's going on.
What is your experience with facility management and construction?
I think the first 2 years I was at Carroll High School, I actually had a hard hat. There was, you know, I kept it in my office and I had the vest that went along with it. I've had a ton of experience in dealing with construction and physical management. Obviously, you know, when I was the assistant principal at the middle school, that's in your job title. And then when we went to the high school, as soon as I got the job, the first year that I was there, we started construction on a brand new high school. And just to make it a little bit tougher, we built the high school in the parking lot of the school we were currently using. So you try going through a football season where you have nowhere to park, and you're trying to tell people you can't park on the road, you have to go down. It was quite an experience, but the result has been well worth it. Anybody that's, you know, had a chance to visit Carroll High School, it's a beautiful campus. But I was involved in that every step of the way. It was constant meetings with the architects, with the construction company, working with that. Since we built the high school, we were actually talking about it a little while earlier, we've done several renovations to the stadium. We built We tore down our visiting side concession stand and press box and completely rebuilt it. We've had to redo our practice field to get it to a full-size field, so we just completed that project. And anytime you get a stadium in a bowl, like we have at Carroll, we have these wonderful sinkholes that keep popping up. And so we're constantly fixing those. We've just fixed one, and it was quite challenging. And then the latest project, we actually just moved into our new central office last week. We had bought a old car dealership, and we had turned the back of it into our bus barn. And then we renovated the front of it, and the real reason that we did that was because now, for the first time since I've been there, all of the central office staff is under one roof. And so it just makes it that much easier for us to stay in contact. So quite a bit of experience in construction and management.
You mentioned a couple of these in a previous answer, but what is your philosophy and experience in alternative education programs, like alternative school, homebound, social emotional learning programs?
Right. In Ozark, we have a virtual school. We have what we use our virtual school for is those rare cases. We have a student, for example, that is a national equestrian rider, so she's constantly going over the country, all over the country riding, and so we put her in our virtual program. For the students that we have in our buildings, we basically have two programs that we use. We have an alternative school, which we call our Accelerated Learning Center. And the reason that we call it our Accelerated Learning Center is not all of our students that are in that building are there for discipline. We have students that get behind for whatever reason, and so they start to get towards the end of their middle school career, or they get into their high school career, and they've kind of figured it out, and so they're wanting to catch back up and get back with their right cohort. And so we will put them at the Accelerated Learning Center to get them caught up. We have certified teachers that work in our Accelerated Learning Center. We put the students on a computer program called Odyssey so they can kind of work at their own pace. And so, we do use our Accelerated Learning Center for things other than discipline. Kind of going back to a little bit about what I said earlier, we use the homebound service and we use the alternative school service really dependent on each child. There's some children that when they come for an admin hearing, it warrants them being placed in our homebound program. At the elementary level, the way we do that is we use teachers, and they'll meet with the students 3 days a week for 2 hours. They'll give them assignments that they go home and work on. They come back, and when they do come back, they're with the certified teacher, the whole time they're there, to go, over the things they don't understand, go over new material. In our Accelerated Learning Center, as I said before, we use Odyssey. And one other thing that we use in our Accelerated Learning Center is, again, like I said before, we bring in the counselors, especially if students are there for discipline, to work with them on corrective behavior. The whole purpose with our alternative program, homebound and alternative school, is we're trying to use school resources. While we do have to remove that student from school for a specific amount of time, we do want to make sure that we're providing those students services to make sure that the ultimate goal, they don't go back. And so we typically, I know that some alternative schools have shorter term stints where they stay 10 days. We typically, if we put a student in the Accelerated Learning Center or homebound, they're there for a longer period of time. We don't house, I think in Right now, we share with the county, and we have 15 slots at our alternative school, or our Accelerated Learning Center. And we typically put kids over there for about a semester at a time, and we do that for a couple reasons. On the academic side of it, if you're using a computer program, you don't want to put a kid in a computer program and then 10 days later you pull them out and they go back to school. It just kind of messes it up. So we leave them there for a semester, and we found that works better. And then secondly, if you're going to pull a student out of school, if their behavior is to the point where they need to be pulled out of school, how much are we really affecting their behavior in 10 days? So what we want to do is really give those resources time to take effect where we really can change that behavior before we try them back at the school.
Do you have any virtual programs?
We do. Like I said, we have a virtual program. Our virtual program is small. Like I said, we probably have 4 or 5 kids in our virtual program now.
Okay, what has been the biggest problem in community-school relations in your career, and what did you do about it? And if you will, please describe some specific strategies that you will use to promote parent and public support for school activities.
And I'll tell anybody that I'm talking to, the 5 years that I spent at Carroll High School were the most rewarding 5 years of my career. It was a great experience. But to answer your question, when I first got to Carroll High School, the teacher morale was extremely low. The public perception may have been even worse. The student morale was low. And so we really had to go in there and have a plan in place. So what we did from a teacher standpoint, first of all, is day one, we got in there and we gave the teachers the opportunity to express their concern. What's the problem? What's going wrong here? And then we talked to them and we developed a plan together. And once we developed that plan, the teacher morale, started to turn around fairly quickly. The community took a little bit longer. But the way that we really approached the community relations is we made sure that we were getting the message that we were doing out to the public. Board meetings, we were doing presentations. All of our orientations, we were doing presentations. Freshman orientation, 10th grade orientation. We would go out, have special nights where we would invite the public in to discuss with them the things that we were doing moving forward. And that really helped us to start to gain, the community trust, because we were telling them up front, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. And that really helped us with the community. One of the things that we're in the process of developing now that I think will really help with those community relations and community perception is we're in the early stages right now of developing a superintendent's advisory committee. And the purpose of that committee is we're putting together the list right now, and that's really, we're trying to finalize that list. But we want to get people from every part of the community, poor, wealthy, middle class, community leaders, business leaders, public officials. And we want to form this committee where we can come together as a group, and the school system can get their message out there to the public. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And at the same time, and probably more importantly, it gives us an opportunity for the community to share with us what their concerns are. The biggest thing that hurts public perception and relations with the community is misinformation. And so this is a way that we're trying to combat that, where we can get members from all walks of the community together where we can get the right information out there. This is really what we're doing. And then that way that helps them spread that message out through the community as well. And that's just, I've talked to some superintendents that have done that and had real good success with their public relations in doing that.
What's your opinion about the proper relationship of academics versus sports versus other extracurricular activities, and describe your philosophy about middle school versus high school sports?
The number one goal of any school system is to provide students with the best education they can. We are here to get our students academically ready to move forward and ready to be productive members of society. And one of the best ways to get them to be academically successful is to get them involved in something. And so sports, because you have so many sports, is a great way to do that. But, you mentioned the extracurricular activities. Any activity that we can get students interested in helps build that sense of school pride, and that's what we're after. Sports, sports help a school in a lot of ways. It's not just the athletes, that sports help. We had a big push when I was the principal at Carroll High School, where we were trying to really talk to the students about building these really big, at our football games and our basketball games, these really big student sections. And we were really successful with that, and we made it fun for them, and we really had a great turnout with that. And sports allows that to happen. I was a long-time coach, and so I've seen what sports can do for students. I've seen students that they behave in the classroom and they're doing their classwork just because they want to make sure that they're able to play sports. And even though that's not the end result, if it works, that's just another way that we can reach students. As far as how high school sports and middle school sports, in your really good programs, and this is something that we did when I coached here at the middle school, your high school sports and your middle school sports have to work together. There should be a smooth transition from your middle school into your high school. And so you have to make sure that your coaches, your head coaches of your sports at the high school level are down in the middle school, meeting with the coaches, meeting with the players, meeting with the parents, and keeping that interest level up so that the students keep playing those sports when they transition into the high school.
Explain your view on the best way to integrate technology into the instructional process in order to raise students' achievement.
Instructional technology, and we're so far down that road now in most school systems. We're one-to-one at our high school, and we're just about completely one-to-one at the middle school in Ozark. I know here from visiting the schools that you're one-to-one here at the high school. And technology is wonderful, and having every student with a Chromebook is great. But at the same time, we've got to make sure that our teachers in the classroom have the professional development and the resources to properly use that technology. It really doesn't do us a whole lot of good to just have Chromebooks if nobody really knows how to use them. And so one of the things, as soon as we moved into Carroll High School, we went one-to-one. And it didn't take us long to figure out that we were not exactly prepared, to have every student, having a Chromebook. That their textbooks were on that, and it was a difficult transition. But the key to technology instruction is you just have to make sure that the technology that you're bringing into your instructional program is there for a reason and serves a purpose, and is not there just to say you're using technology. And that's something that you can only do really by being in classrooms. You know, when teachers are using technology, you know, go in the classroom and see it. Is it the most effective instruction that they can be using? And if not, you know, then we have to make sure that they're getting the professional development and things they need so that they can use that technology, because it's a great thing. And I mean, some of the things that we see students do and the presentations that they're doing in class, those are great. But we just need to make sure that when we're using it the right way.
Describe your leadership management style and what methods you have found to be most effective in supervision and building rapport with administrators and employees.
My leadership style is I'm a delegator. And what I mean by that is a school system is too big, but a school system is definitely too big to micromanage every aspect of what's going on. In order for a school system to run as efficient as it could, you've got to have great people, put those great people in the positions they need to be in, as I said earlier, and provide them the resources that they need to be successful. The best way in accomplishing those goals that I've found is having conversations with people. You know, you've got to be visible, and you've got to meet with people and let them tell you, you know, if I'm going to give you a position as the federal programs coordinator, or I'm going to put you in charge of curriculum, I need to make sure that we're meeting on a regular basis so that you can tell me what's going well, what's not going well, what can I do to help you. And doing that throughout my career has served me well, and we've had a lot of success. As simple as it sounds, just by, you know, having open communication between teachers and administrators and the superintendent, you know, and that's the best way that I've found to do it.
Before Ms. Richardson give a closing question, do either board member have any more questions?
Can we go
Oh, we
over
do
11?
11.
Yeah.
Ms. Carter, if you will, please.
Number 11.
Yes.
We always ask that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. I got to go. I'm gonna let you know. I got to go with something. What experience have you had with aligning educational programs in schools to meet the current standards and workforce demand? And what should be the superintendent role in curriculum and instruction and in the evaluation of the results?
You know, the superintendent has to be directly involved in the curriculum and instruction. You have to make sure that what you're doing is working, and the only way you can do that is to be directly involved in it. Which one was that?
Number 11. What experience have you had with aligning educational programs in schools to meet the current standards?
When it comes to the standards, and we'll just take that first. When I became the assistant principal at D.A. Smith, we had a superintendent come in, and he started a process where we started developing formative assessments. I probably learned more in that summer and a half where we started looking at subjects. We're working directly with English teachers, math teachers, social studies teachers, and what we're looking at is the standards. And so we started looking at how you break down those standards, how you develop instruction based off those standards, and also how you develop assessments based off those standards that are valid tests. And then as I moved into being the principal at Carroll High School, one of the things that they had not done there in all of their programs was that very thing. So we started meeting as a faculty in department meetings, and we started looking at how are we assessing students, not assessing them with the grad exam at that time or ACT, but how are we making sure that what we're teaching is aligning to the standards, and then how do we evaluate that. So we put those programs in place. We had regular department meetings where the teachers were bringing back that data. They would present it to the group. They would also present it to me. And then when you start talking about workforce demands, at Carroll High School, we were one of the first schools to really launch into career academies. And when we started that process, one of the first things that we did was we met with the business leaders in Ozark, and we talked to them about, what do you need? You know, in Ozark, what skills do our students need? And one of the main things they talked about was soft skills, the lack of soft skills that our students had. So we went into each one of our academy programs, and we went with the mission of developing those soft skills. And so, you know, as a result of that, you know, 3 years after we started, that graduating class, 97% of our students were career completers in an academy. And that was a huge accomplishment for us, and I think it's something that, as you talk to students, and you'll find that here with your career academies as well, as those students move forward, the skills that they're learning in these academies are things that are going to help them throughout life. Some of them are going to go straight into the workforce, and those skills that they learned right here in Eufaula. Other ones are going to go to college, and they're going to pursue, you know, they're in your health science academy here, and they're going to move on and go to nursing school. Well, a lot of those kids that go into nursing school are not going to have had any of these courses, and the teachers, or excuse me, the students that come through this program are going to have 3 or 4 levels of nursing before they even get into school. So what we're providing these students is just the advantage, you know, we're just giving them advantages and things that they can use as they move forward to be successful.
Any other ones before we wrap up? All right, we're coming to a close, but can you give us your best 3-minute speech that would entice any community member to enroll their children in Eufaula City Schools?
In talking to any community member about going to school in Eufaula City Schools, the first thing I would simply say is it's the only choice. You know, the resources that we have available to your child in Eufaula City Schools are unmatched. And there's no other school system that you could put your child in where they will have the advantages that they would have in Eufaula. Starting in the early childhood with the early childhood program that we have, the resources that we're able to give kids and give them at such a young age. And we're already seeing the results in that. They move into our elementary schools. We have fine arts programs. We have art. We have music. When you get into our elementary school, we start a STEM program where they get robotics, they get advanced mathematics. Then when you get into the middle school, we have choral music, we have band, we have 2 robotics teams. And then when you get to Eufaula High School, we have career academies so that we can start molding your child and start developing what they think they want to do as a career. And one of the things that I'll tell you up front is we may not show your child in his time in this academy that that's what he wants to do for a living, but we may show him what he definitely doesn't want to do for a living. And that'll save you from going and spending 2 years of college for him to figure that out there. And so our athletic programs are unmatched. And on a side note, trust me, I've coached, you know, I've been an administrator, you know, in a rival district for a while, and so I'm well aware of that. But when it comes to your child, what you're trying to do is you're trying to give them all the advantages they can have in moving forward, and there is no place that they can go that will give them more advantages than Eufaula City Schools.
Okay. All right. Mr. Brannon, I think that completes this interview process. We certainly appreciate you taking out the time of your busy schedule and coming in and state your case for this position. Again, we thank you, and we hope that you have safe travels back home. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Also moved. Thank you much.